Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City, here is Steve Malzberg.
طبعا احنا بنطلع عشان نوجه رسالة للكل، نوجه انه في اطفال فلسطينيين، يعني لسه احنا عايشين، في ناس برا بتعرف انه لا هم ماتوا بس اسرائيل، ما في شيء اسمه فلسطين، لا احنا بدنا نقول انه فلسطين موجودة وفلسطين رح ترجع وما في شيء اسمه اسرائيل.
برافو عليك.
في شيء اسمه الاراضي المحتلة.
برافو صابرين، برافو برافو.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. That is Palestinian Authority television talking about how there's no Israel, there's only Palestine, and now watch Hamas television.
شو عاصمة فلسطين؟ القدس.
جميل.
ايوه نزلي رجلك، نزلي رجلك يلا.
هيا روان
عشان ماما تشوفك. طيب وشو عاصمة المغرب؟
الرباط.
الرباط. وشو عاصمة الأردن؟
عمان.
عمان.
ممتاز.
شو عاصمة العراق؟
بغداد.
ومصر؟
القاهرة.
القاهرة. طيب إسرائيل؟
فلسطين.
شو؟
فلسطين.
فيش إسرائيل؟ فلسطين وبس. صلى عليها.
لا يوجد
لا يوجد إسرائيل.
خلي أبوك يشتري سندوتشات.
علي صوتك وكمان مرة احكي لي، في لإسرائيل عاصمة؟ في لا إيش عاصمة إسرائيل؟ إسرائيل. شطورة أنت أمورة.
All right, so there you go. They teach their kids, and that's tame by comparison to what's on Palestinian television. Joining us now is the man who knows better than anybody, Itamar Marcus, founder and director of Palestinian Media Watch, joins us all the way from Israel. Hello, sir.
Hi, great to be with you.
Well, great to have you on, and your organization and your website provides such a service for anybody who wants to know, and for a media who you would hope would want to know but doesn't want to look at all, for a U.S. government that doesn't want to look at all. But when they do look, they'll find, and in this case, not much of a difference between the peaceful, quote-unquote, Palestinian Authority and the terrorist group Hamas when it comes to what they teach their kids.
Well, that's absolutely the case, and I'll just reiterate something that we released just a few months ago when the Hamas and the Palestinian Authority Fatah announced that they're going to join a former unity government. We released a video of Mahmoud Abbas, who's head of the Palestinian Authority. When he spoke a few years ago, he asked Hamas on television to join him in unity. And what he said was, there is no difference between us, no difference in belief, no difference in ideology, no difference in tactics right now, he said. So come join us in government. And this is in fact the case. What we document on our website with hundreds of examples in a month, that recognition of Israel is non-existent in the Palestinian Authority. That is recognition of Israel's right to exist. They will say sometimes, well, there is a state named Israel, but they will never say that Israel has a right to exist. This is supposedly just what the Hamas says, but in fact, the Palestinian Authority says the same thing. They all glorify terrorists. They all demonize Israel by making lies. They all demonize Israel, saying that we are poisoning prisoners, that we are about to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The basic ideologies of the PA and the Hamas vis-a-vis Israel are the same. The big difference between them is really political. It's really internal. It's about whether they should be an Islamic state or whether it should be an Islamic state with some semblances of democracy, which the PA wants. But in terms of Israel, the ideology is the same.
Absolutely, and I remember that remark, and I remember some of us talking about it at the time. But let's talk about, for now, what they teach their kids. I go back to that Mickey Mouse, big Mickey Mouse guy who was telling the kids, I guess it was PA television, we'll take Jerusalem with our blood, in Arabic or whatever language it is. And but I saw the translation provided by you guys. And this is, a culture that not only glorifies, and we'll get to that in a second, homicide bombers who kill innocents, but teaches their children hatred and bloodshed, and that Jews are bad, and you shoot Jews, and the cops. My father's a cop. My uncle's a police officer in Jerusalem. What does he do? He shoots the Jews. This is outrageous. It's almost child abuse. Yet the media in this country is silent. Our administration's silent, and Israel's the bad guy.
Yes, what you're saying is absolutely true, and you mentioned the one example there. I'll just to give you a sense of what we've had on children's programs on Palestinian Authority TV. Again, not Hamas, Palestinian Authority TV. We've had young girls, probably 6 and 7 years old, saying things like the Jews are the descendants of the monkeys and the pigs, the most evil of Allah's creations. There was one young girl who read a poem which included those words, and at the end she said, "They raped the women in the city squares." Now, this girl, when you see her on TV, she is not old enough to know what "they raped the women in the city squares" means. Right. But they are brainwashing these kids before they even know the meaning of the words. They're brainwashing them with a lot of hate ideology. And I might point something else out. It's a lot of Islamic hate ideology. When you teach the kids that Jews are the enemies of Allah, the most evil of his creations, and descendants of monkeys and pigs, those are Islamic religious concepts, which mean that they supersede any Palestinian-Israeli national agreement that could ever happen in the future. If we are Allah's enemies, and his worst creation, and also they taught condemned to humiliation, then a peace treaty will never hold water, because for Palestinians, Islam comes first, Palestinian secular agreements come second. So with all this hate ideology Palestinians are giving their kids in the name of Islam, they are literally guaranteeing that we will never be able to have peace with the next generation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And anybody with a brain, and I would hope the Israeli government understands that. And you know, it was Golda Meir, I believe, who said, when the Palestinians start loving their children more than they hate Israelis, then there'll be peace, and that's never going to happen. You talk about there's a story here about how our enemy Zion is Satan with a tail. That appears in a poem that people like the best, according to a young Palestinian. So there's another example.
Yes, and we're not surprised they like it the best, because we've heard it already 5 times on Palestinian television, read by children. In fact, one young girl was probably 6 or 7, and before she introduced the poem, she said, "I said this poem when I was asked to introduce it at an educational conference." So at an educational conference for adults, she was asked to sing this poem, to read this poem, which includes the words, "Our enemy is Zion, Satan with a tail." Again, girl was too young to know what Satan means, but she's getting the message that there's something incredibly evil about Zionists, about Israelis, and about Jews.
And you know, let's elevate it up to directly to Abbas and the peaceful PA, and it really galled me when Abbas sat next to Obama in the Oval Office recently, and Obama called him a man of peace, which, you know, to me is one of the most disrespectful things he's done to Israel, and it probably went over everybody's head except maybe Benjamin Netanyahu and some others and people like you. Here the PA Daily, Abbas's newspaper, devoting a full op-ed to a suicide bomber with a sentimental recount of his last hours before a terror attack in 2001 that wounded 20 people, glorifying the terrorists as Abbas and the PA always do.
Mahmoud Abbas himself has done some of the most horrific terror glorification. Just a few months ago, when terrorist murderers were released from jail, he went and he hugged Issa Abidrabo. It's just a name to most people, but we know what Issa Abidrabo did. He followed 2 Israeli university students when they were on a hike, and he watched them, and then he saw they sat down for a picnic. Then he came up to them with a rifle, forced them to lie down, tied them both behind their back, tied their hands, and then put bags on their heads and shot both of them in the head. This is Issa Abidrabo. When he was released from jail a few months ago, and he was released because Israel was forced to by the PA in order to have peace talks. When he was released, Abbas grabbed him and hugged him, picked up his hand, and the 2 of them stood there together with their holding V's up. V's for victory. And then Abbas spoke and referred to him and the other murderers released as heroes. So Abbas is not a man of peace. If he takes murderers of young people, of children, and calls them heroes publicly, this is not a man.
All right, let me ask you this, because you're there and I'm not. What's the reaction in Israel? I mean, do the left-wing peaceniks who will never learn, they don't care, and the people, you know, who do understand it, like you and the Netanyahus and the Likud people, and do most people in Israel understand that this is an outrage and you could never make peace with people who run their society this way?
Well, the Israeli press has been giving a lot more exposure to the material that we're releasing. And Prime Minister Netanyahu has been working very closely with us. So we've been working very closely with him for a very long time now. And he, in almost all his public speeches, he's quoting from some of the material that we're supplying him, so that the Israeli population has gotten the message. And if we look at public opinion polls recently, the overwhelming majority of Israelis absolutely understand that the Palestinian Authority is not a peace partner.
All right. And the website is palwatch.org. palwatch.org. It's Itamar Marcus, founder and director of Palestinian Media Watch. Again, doing a great service, and keep it up, sir. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
My pleasure. All right, folks, there you go. And Israel's supposed to give them land and shake hands and sign agreements and be smiles. They're brothers in peace who teach their kids Jews are Satan with a tail. Steve Malzberg Show.